This is Comic Geek Speak, episode 1783, Comic Talk.
Laser beams, opinions like the seasons on everything you read in comics, movies, games, toys, artists, comic geek speak, comic geek speak, comic geek speak, comic geek speak, comic geek, uniting the world's mightiest heroes. This is.
I'm Ian Levinstein.
I'm Shane Kelly.
I'm Adam Murdo.
And I'm Chris Everly.
You know, I'm glad that we had Chris do the intro there because he's the only one who actually says 1,783.
I know, he takes the long way around.
You know what? I was thinking that because I haven't introduced an episode in a while, and I said, you know what? I want to feel the weight of the history of the show. And when it rolls off the tongue,
1983.
I meant that in a positive, epic quality.
Okay.
The weight of history as the number tumbles from the lips.
Yes.
But
Sonorous as always, Brother Murdo.
And we return from a brief hiatus. We had our off week in a different way around than I initially planned it. But for those of you who have not listened to the epic Spotlight on Shazam in the Copper Age, that was enough to keep you going for sure.
Yeah, it was a shorter than average spotlight, but that's not saying that much, really.
Yeah.
I'm smarter than the average bear.
Exactly. Anything that's over 2 hours in its spotlight is standard, and I think we did that in spades.
Well, yeah, you know, I know when we came on and Adam said, well, this won't be nearly as long, and I'm watching my watch, watching the clock, and I'm going, okay, we're going. But we're pretty close.
It didn't need to be split into 2 episodes.
That is true.
No, that's true.
I stand by my claim.
and your claim was accurate, sir. So job well done on that.
The majesty of Murdo.
Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, we begin this episode on a bit of a somber note, as since the last time we recorded, the world lost an actor who seemed like he had a great career ahead of him, not just in the realm of, comic book characters, but in a very short amount of time. Mr. Chadwick Boseman, who unfortunately passed away on August 28th of cancer, got to play characters like, Jackie Robinson and Thurgood Marshall and, he was there James Brown for Get On Up. I mean... And the character that he played in The Five Bloods was exceptional for the amount of time that he was around.
I watched that right before he died.
Yeah, and it's just a very, very sad day when I heard the news about Chadwick, because he had been losing weight for a while, and originally I think his press guys tried to say that it was for a role, and now to know the truth behind it, it's a very, very sad day when we lose someone that young.
Yeah. I was shocked. I even had my kids texting me saying, "Oh my God, look what happened."
Yeah, from thinking of it from the perspective of sort of the context of this show, I mean, like everybody, because you got to respect the fact that the man had maintained his privacy, and he was working.
Yeah.
During, I mean, he made Black Panther while he had cancer.
Yeah.
So, in addition, just what struck me about Boseman, long before anybody knew that he was ill or anything like that, because nobody knew, of course. But his gifts as an actor, and Ian just rattled off a couple of roles that he played. I mean, the range he possessed. Like if you watch Get On Up, his James Brown is amazing.
Yeah,
like that is a tour de force performance.
Yeah, I have to watch that one yet.
Yeah, it's tremendous. And then when you go from that to T'Challa. For me, the best actors, they disappear into their roles.
Exactly.
Like they're actors we all enjoy, but they're always the same person in every movie.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They're good at it, and we appreciate them. And I'm not going to name names. I'm sure we all can name a bunch of people off the top of our heads, but they sort of hit a ceiling, and that's what they can do. Then there are actors like this is like a Marlon Brando or Robert Duvall or actors like that. And Chadwick Boseman, I consider in that category because when he did a performance, he vanished into that role, and you're not thinking, oh, it's the Black Panther. No, he's playing James Brown, or he's playing Thurgood Marshall, or he's playing that soldier in Da 5 Bloods. And in the Black Panther role, what's so overwhelmed me when I saw the movie, and actually before that, when he first appeared in Civil War, is that you realize instantaneously he captured the essence of the character.
Yeah.
And he brought the character alive from the comic book page to the silver screen. And I mean, I remember when I saw him in Civil War, and just the first few moments, I was like, "Wow, he's got it! Like it's T'Challa, like he captured the essence of the character." Yeah. And then when, of course, that was really expanded upon in the eponymous film. I mean, what an achievement! I mean, it's one of the best for me. One of the best adaptations of a Pulp Fiction character, so to speak, in a movie.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I agree.
I know, obviously, as a fan of both of comics and of film, I'm deeply saddened by this loss because, as Ian pointed out, he was only in his early 40s. I mean, imagine what he was going to achieve in the years and decades to come.
Sure.
Yeah.
So,
not only as an actor, but as a writer, and he probably will branch into directing eventually. So
yeah.
And the thing about it too is that, I mean, because of how private he was, Marvel didn't even know. So, they were in the planning stages of Black Panther 2, and although he had been getting sicker, Chadwick was very hopeful that he'd be able to, put the weight back on and go out there as T'Challa yet again, as production was supposed to begin on Black Panther 2, I think, starting this fall, because it was, it's slated to come out in 2022 as of this time. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen now, but that's the least important thing, with his life, being lost in the way it was. But, unintentionally, because this is how the world works sometimes, the day he died, it was Jackie Robinson Day. Because
was it? I didn't know that.
Major League Baseball usually has Jackie Robinson Day in June, but because of the pandemic and, there not being baseball being played, they pushed it back until I think it may have been at the actual official day where they dissolved the Negro Leagues and officially integrated Major League Baseball. But it was also the day of Jack Kirby's birthday.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So what a day. For Boseman to pass that a day to honor the co-creator of the the character that most probably people know him best as, and that he took on the role of Jackie Robinson and it was Jackie Robinson Day. Just it just added to the tragedy even further.
Well, and through all of the news bites and different interviews and things that you saw not only that night but following days, I know some of these things I knew and some of them I didn't. I loved hearing again how Denzel Washington paid for him to be overseas in an acting school. I thought that was kind of cool, and I loved watching the speech that Chadwick Boseman gave to Denzel at some award ceremony when Denzel was winning something. I loved hearing that Chadwick wrote his first play while he was in high school, or something. So he was aspiring from a very young age for all this. It was just overwhelming what talent this gentleman had, and I loved watching him in anything I called him on. There was one thing that talked about his TV roles, and one time he went to get a TV role, and the director, whoever was giving him the script, and said, "Okay, you're this kind of person, but your mom was a drug addict, or your dad." And he was going through all these things that are very, very downtrodden, very stereotypical to me. And he's like, "I'm not doing that. I'm not playing it that way. No, you rewrite it, or I'm not doing it," kind of thing. It was very interesting to hear. I think he would have been. I loved watching the. I totally interrupted myself. I loved watching him when he did The Late Show and was surprising people from behind a curtain as they're talking about Black Panther.
Yes.
And then he'd come out from behind the curtain with Jimmy Fallon and talk to them then for a few minutes. I love watching that scene. I just can't. I think he would have been somebody that would have been extremely interesting to talk to at length.
The Saturday Night Live bit that he did when he was hosting, where they did Black Jeopardy and he played T'Challa, is one of the funniest Saturday Night Live sketches I have ever seen, and I will hold to that. With him describing the potato salad with the raisins. It's pitch perfect, and even with all this happening to him, he still made time to visit a sick child during the pandemic. At least once, and that's the type of man he was. And unfortunately, we no longer get to experience him in this mortal coils.
Well, and I love that he was great as Black Panther, and I'm so glad that the way they unfolded the Marvel universe, that you got him in Civil War, you got him in Black Panther, you got him in the first Avengers part, you got him in the second Avengers part a little. He was in a few movies. Yeah.
That just, adds to the fact that the Black Panther character was evolving each time he was on the screen. And that was partially Marvel's cinematic universe and partially Chadwick, that we got to know the character even more every time he showed up.
Especially because he was playing the character in the context of becoming a king and the struggles, in terms of identity, the legacy of his father, revealing when he discovered the full legacy of his father, which had a sordid aspect to it. And you saw that play out in his acting throughout the progression of those films. So, and one thing I was thinking about, because Ian mentioned this earlier, and as fans, you can't help but think about it. So if they ever do return to that franchise, so to speak, I think they should make his sister the Black Panther.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
I think that would be the actress who plays Shuri is fantastic, and she has such a different, irreverent take on the character's place in that world and how she views it. I think it'd be a really interesting story, and it's kind of like when we think about Heath Ledger's indelible take on the Joker. And of course, there have been Jokers since, and eventually someday there'll be other Black Panthers probably too, because that's just the way these machines roll.
Right.
But I think his performance was so powerful and so captured the essence of that character, especially as we know it and as I know it, that I think it would do it great honor to the concept of the character and the idea behind the Black Panther legacy, that they make his sister the next Black Panther in the movie.
Yeah.
Letitia Wright is the name of the actress, by the way.
Yep.
And you all know me well enough, and I'm sure plenty of listeners do, and certainly my family does. One of my absolute favorite scenes in any of those Marvel movies is the very first time we see him at the UN Council meeting when he's talking to his father. Oh, such a great part.
That we had the visits into the afterlife and things like that in Black Panther itself, and I never freeze, and like I'm not dead, and all that, and his legacy will continue to live on in the movies in one way or another. Whether or not they try to pull a Carrie Fisher and try to include him in one way or another in the next movie, we'll see. But I think he very much did his part while he was around, and if that's all we ever see of Black Panther again, I'd be perfectly okay with that. I think that Shuri would be a terrific add-on, even if she does take the role of Black Panther. If they call her Black Panther, then so be it. But yeah, if they retire T'Challa after this, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
If I may, because Ian, you've reminded me of something. If we could transition in a way, I just wanted to point out to everybody, because I think it'd be interesting to talk about right now, is I actually went to the movies this past weekend.
Wow.
Well, you know what? Actually, one moment before we get there, while we're still on the topic of Black Panther, I just wanted to point out to everybody on the podcast, as this will come out while it's still the case, Comixology went above and beyond to honor Mr. Chadwick Boseman, and at the moment, every single Black Panther comic is free. And I'm not just talking Black Panther the series, but the Shuri miniseries, the Killmonger miniseries, Black Panther 2099, Black Panther and the Sound and the Fury, Black Panther versus Deadpool, Black Panther and the Crew. The list goes on of comics that are there. The Kirby Black Panther is free right now. You have to get them as individual issues. So just
Ian, I'm really glad you brought that up because I wasn't aware of that. Of course, being the redundant fool that I am, I'll mention to people if you have not read Don McGregor's Jungle Action stories, if you have not read Christopher Priest's stories, that's where the movie is primarily drawn from.
Yep.
Those two series, check them out.
Yeah, they unfortunately did not include Jungle Action. I went ahead and took a look at them. However, for anyone who does have Comixology Unlimited, you can quote-unquote rent Volume 1 of the Black Panther Masterworks, which includes...
That's the whole Jungle Action series, actually.
Exactly, yep. So you can read that for free if you're a Comixology Unlimited member. And I think it may also be Amazon Prime member in general. But that is available to people.
Doesn't... Ian, just... The electricity you shoot up my spine when you do these promo spots because you're always so on top of things. Just, man, you're indefatigable, sir. The service you provide to the show
It's my pleasure, sir. It's my
beyond
pleasure.
measure.
Yep. But anywho, you went to the movies.
Yeah, so I thought of this because you brought up Denzel Washington, and I went to see Tenet, which stars his son. And because theaters just opened in New Jersey this past weekend. And being antediluvian, I still love losing myself in the theater and experiencing a movie, at the big screen. And I had a couple takeaways. I won't spoil the movie too much. I'll give a sort of general impression of it. But before I get to that, what I found very interesting, as I was sitting there, I was thinking to myself, all right, so we talked before on this show and in other conversations in our lives about how the pandemic seems to have perhaps accelerated the changing or the demise of certain types of entertainment or consumerism.
Yeah.
And I have to wonder if the movie theater concept will survive as we know it today, because I was reading reviews of Tenet online after I saw the movie and a lot of comments, and this is the New York Times review, and a lot of people were basically saying, oh, I'll wait to see it on streaming.
Yeah.
And what do you guys think about that? Do you think that...
I think it's entirely possible that it won't survive. I don't want to see that go away completely.
Oh, me neither. Yeah.
But I do think it is a possibility. I don't necessarily think it's likely yet, but I think it could happen.
Yeah, I don't mean to suggest I think it's going to happen, anytime soon.
Right.
But when you think about generational change and how, we're living in a world where most people are become very accustomed now to streaming platforms. I mean, we mentioned the Five Bloods before. That's just dropped on Netflix, the latest Spike Lee film.
Yep.
And I'm just curious to see. Now, granted, they said the same thing about movies when television became big and movies persisted. So we'll see. But it just struck me.
In that same vein, until Marvel and DC, Marvel and Warner Brothers started putting out all these comic book movies in the last 10 years, I was about done with going to the movies because it was too expensive for what I was seeing.
It's very expensive, yeah.
I mean, I love going to the movies, and there's things that I would have still gone to see.
Right.
But I would not have gone to near as many movies as I have, given all of these superhero and sci-fi movies out the last 10 to 12 years that I absolutely adore. And that I could experience with my kids. If Marvel Cinematic Universe was starting now, I don't know that we'd get to a lot of movies because my kids are grown up.
Sure.
One's off at college, one's doing his own thing in school. It wouldn't be quite the same. I'm sure we still would, but not in the same way we did.
Well,
so that kind of hit at the perfect time when I was not that I was never going to go to a movie, but that I was not going to as many. But through this morphing, this natural growth of these Marvel movies and even the DC movies, we went to a lot of movies. We enjoyed them. But that was kind of a unique set for what I was interested in. Otherwise, I was not going to many movies anymore.
Well, so my perspective is this. One of my favorite things to do is go to the movies.
Me too, yeah.
And it was probably the thing that myself and my girlfriend did the most outside of going to museums and Broadway shows. But I do it a specific way every time. I'd either see it on a Tuesday because our local theater is an AMC, and we would go to the the $5 Tuesday showings, and I would pay $5 for a movie ticket, and I would go and see it. And that's how AMC made a bulk of their money for a while over the past couple of years, were these Tuesday showings, because they're not making their money off of the movie ticket. They're making their money off
concession stands.
Exactly,
Right.
concession stands and the like. And if you go in there and you pay $5 for a movie ticket, but then you spend $25 on popcorn and a soda, then you've essentially made the money that AMC was looking to make, and that was it. Mind you, I would pay $5. I would very rarely buy concessions at the movies, or if I did, I would use my points on my Stubs rewards and save myself a little bit of money. I had thought that the future of movie theaters was the model that Alamo Drafthouse had put forward, and things along those lines, which were sitting there, eating a meal, and experiencing the movie. If they wanted to get people to pay full price, that's where I thought we were going. However, the pandemic hit, and I'm looking here, in New York City, movie theaters are still not opened. We have no timetable whatsoever on when they will open. They just announced today, as we're recording it, that indoor dining is returning to New York City at a 25% capacity. They have not said anything yet about malls in New York City, nor have they said anything about films, movie theaters. That's to be determined. And I'm looking at it, and I'm also seeing how successful things like pop-up drive-ins have been in this day and age. And maybe what I thought was the future was actually the past. Maybe that is the future for the time being of movie theaters. If we were to go back to a model of sitting in your car, because sound systems have gotten better and better, and if you go by a Bluetooth model or even a radio model for listening to the movies, or you're able to somehow Bluetooth sync your earbuds to the movie while you're sitting there and you're watching the movie on a big screen, then that's going to be an enjoyable experience because you're still getting there to watch a movie on a big screen, and that goes a long way. So yeah, I don't know what the future is anymore, because I thought I had it pegged. I really did. And then the pandemic happened, and it was like, yeah, you know what? You might not want to sit there and eat your food.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very interesting where the whole system goes in the next couple of years. AMC got bailed out by a foreign company, or else they'd be out of business right now.
Sure.
They came very close to going bankrupt during this pandemic. Not the same for Regal. I think they were a little bit more lucrative. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting. And also think of how much money they were making off of stuff like their AMC, like the Stubs Premium and stuff like that, where you would see multiple movies in a month. And that's how they would make their money, is essentially, you buy that pass, and then you go as often as you want. But are they even going to be able to make money off of that anymore?
Right.
It's difficult.
And I'm all for, and I have plenty of options for streaming platforms. I also won't be one of those people. Again, if it was the right kind of thing, I'm sure I would at least consider it. But like, say, Disney Plus, you have Disney Plus.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see the new Mulan right now if you pay $30 more dollars.
Yeah.
Right.
I won't do that.
Sure.
That's not to say, though, if they said, well, hey, Black Widow's going to do that now, I'd be tempted to do it, because that's still cheaper than taking me and the boys to go see it in a theater.
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't want that to become the norm either, because then you're going to have all these streaming services think, well, they're paying to get in the door for the service. Now they'll pay for these extra things too.
Sure.
No, we already pay to get in the door. That's what's supposed to be there. It's just open the door. There you go. So I really cautiously look at what's happening with the streaming services now, because everybody under the sun has a streaming service
and
to get content.
Sometime in the next week or two, I'm probably going to pay the $20 and watch Bill and Ted Face the Music because I've been waiting for this movie for 20 years. You know,
Right.
you know, like I don't think I'm going to wait for it to be available for $4 rental. I'm going to bite the bullet and I'm going to pay the money. But
Well, and even yesterday, I was watching. Last night, I was watching some of the panels that they had during the Star Trek Day event.
sure.
And it was a lot of fun to watch some of those panels. But every time they talked about Lower Decks, Discovery, Picard, or Strange New Worlds that's coming, it was in the United States. It's streaming on CBS All Access. 192 or 200 other countries around the world get it on Netflix. Well,
So
I have Netflix here, and that's when Discovery was first announced. That's where I thought it was going.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the United States has to pay for a CBS streaming app. But I'm like,
Right.
well, now wait a minute. The rest of the world gets it on Netflix, but we have to pay extra on top of Netflix. Not that we have to. I don't want to say it like that because you could just cancel whatever you want. But it did stick in my craw for almost 2 years that, well, why should we be punished with a CBS streaming service when the rest of the world gets it on Netflix, which is really what it should have been on anyway?
And Picard, if memory serves, is available on Amazon Prime outside of the U.S.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So they're not even being
and
consistent.
They would go over that every single time they talked about a show, and I was like, "You're got to be kidding me!"
Where is
I love exasperated Shane.
where is Lower Decks available outside of the U.S.? By the way, Shane, did they say?
I think it was Netflix again. I don't quite remember that.
Got it. Yeah.
Let me say this though. Getting back to because I actually went to see a movie the night before in March, the night before they shut everything down.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like Shane, I've been an avid moviegoer. Like my parents would take us to the movies regularly when I was little, and this is even before malls, like the towns had like the old single screen theaters, that type of thing. So it's very much in my sort of my cultural DNA. And I mean, I'm the kind of guy who goes down with the ship. So as long as there's theaters showing movies, I'm going to be there. I mean, and I usually go to the movies by myself actually, which I've never had a problem with. And to sit in the theater. And there were maybe a half dozen people in the theater all spaced out, not because they're on drugs, but spaced out because of the seating. To sit there and see the movie and have my popcorn and my overpriced popcorn, overpriced cherry Coke was very comforting. It was good to see a movie like Tenet, which should be seen on the big screen. And do you guys know anything about this movie?
Yeah, no. I mean, I was looking forward to seeing it, and I probably would have saw it in theaters, if circumstances were different. I'm not paying the Uber to go out to New Jersey to go see it right now.
Yeah.
So I think if it does wind up coming out in theaters here, I've already decided that the only real way that you're going to get me to go to the theaters anytime soon here in New York City is very early in the morning or very late at night. Because I am in no way going to a packed movie theater, even if they are at 50% capacity or 25% capacity, there's going to be a lot more people around. If it's, a Saturday or a Sunday or even like a late, like an 8 p.m. showing or something like that. But if I can sneak away and go to like a 9 a.m. showing, because my movie theater is legitimately a 5-minute Uber from here, which costs like $4, I'll do it. And I'll go to the movies that way, but I don't think it's happening anytime soon any other way.
Well, let me say this, Ian. If you ever get a chance to see this movie in the big screen, I would recommend it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to spoil anything. All I would say is that it's Christopher Nolan's take on James Bond.
Mm-hmm.
In I'll use one of Shane's classic phrases, in a timey-wimey context. It's the kind of movie you need to see it at least twice, I think, to fully grasp and understand what's going on in the film. It's not my favorite Christopher Nolan movie, I will say that. But for the visual spectacle alone, because again, everything is pretty much real. Right. Including, I'll say this, showing a massive airplane crashing into a building. So, you definitely get your money's worth when it comes to that. Story-wise, I think he's had stronger movies. But a movie I'll wait till it comes out. I'm not going to go to the theater again, but I'll wait till it is on streaming because I definitely need to see it again to fully wrap my head around it.
To tie it back to comic books for a moment, did you hear the story on how Robert Pattinson auditioned for Batman?
No.
Robert Pattinson auditioned for Batman while filming this movie. He actually had to give Christopher Nolan an excuse as to why he wasn't able to make it to set that day. And I forget what he used. It was either I'm not sure if he said whether he was not feeling that well, or if he was caught in traffic and he'd be a couple hours late or whatever. But that's how he went and auditioned for Batman.
Well, he was really good in Tenet. So
okay.
In fact, I think he was one of the high points of Tenet. So I'm looking forward to seeing his interpretation of Batman.
Very good. Yeah. We will transition to the Batman trailer since we basically just mentioned it now in a minute. But Murd, I actually wanted to get your opinions on the future of movie theaters as someone who doesn't exactly stream. I mean, do you see yourself heading back into a movie theater anytime soon? And for that matter, where do you think this is going to go?
Well, you're right. I don't exactly or even remotely stream, Ian. And it's the theater going is a cherished institution to me, as it is to the other gentlemen in this distinguished discussion. Mm-hmm. Actually, the movie theater here in Stone Harbor, since I'm down here at the southern pole of New Jersey, as Chris is closer to the northern, our Stone Harbor movie theater opened on Friday as well. We had our pick of 3 movies. Tenet is there, I'm pretty sure. Unhinged, which I think is that Russell Crowe vehicle, and also New Mutants, a comic book movie that I pretty much resolved to myself years ago when I first heard it announced that I had no interest in seeing. But I'm certainly tempted right now, actually, to just kind of mosey across the street one night and do it, because since Labor Day is over and Stone Harbor as a beach resort town is not as thickly populated as it had been a couple of weeks earlier, I don't think I'd need to worry too much about being infected.
Sure.
I'd still probably follow your lead there, Ian, and go to an early or a late show, most likely a late one.
Yep.
But yeah, that's how important moviegoing is to me, and how much I've missed it these past few months, that I'd actually pay money to see the New Mutants movie.
I still don't believe it exists personally. I think it's all a ruse.
Yeah, from a recluse's point of view, it's one of the few recreational activities in which one can participate in a public space by oneself without feeling strange.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think Pants would lend his voice to mine here, because he likes going to the movies as well. I know. He burned a hole in that Movie Pass account of his back when that existed a couple of years ago, before it imploded. Yep. When he went to see dozens of movies in a short span of time. Mm-hmm. And it's just a way of getting ourselves out of the house.
Yeah.
And I think Chris made a good point earlier that the small screen didn't kill the big screen decades ago when television was introduced. I don't think the new small screen is going to do that to the movie theater going experience either. Even though this time around there is the on-demand aspect, the fact that there's now a vast array of choices at one's fingertips. You're not just at the mercy so much anymore of what the networks are deciding to show you in terms of movies and other entertainment. You can just choose from a vast menu, from a variety of different streaming services of what you want to watch on your large plasma screen in the comfort of your own home. But I think it's the externality of the experience. Just the fact that you're going outside of your house, outside of yourself, and venturing to this movie palace to watch on a screen larger than most people have room for in or even on the side of their homes, these immense and vastly envisioned Hollywood spectacles. A home theater is well and good, but it really can't replicate the experience of being in a movie theater with a gigantic screen and a top-notch sound system, and just being immersed in that respect. And just not being in the house anymore. I mean, for many people all around the world, that alone is enough to touch off sighs of nostalgic euphoria. Just remembering when you could just leave the house for things, even something as trivial as self-entertainment. Yeah, I'm finding that I miss that quite a bit. And I haven't pulled the trigger yet on walking across the street to see New Mutants, but before this is all said and done, I may just.
Well, sir, if you do, I'd love for you to A, confirm that it exists and it's not just a title screen, and B, let us know how much of a hot mess it actually is, because, dear Lord, have I heard some bad things about that movie.
Ooh. All right, maybe I will throw myself on that grenade eventually.
Yeah.
We'll just see.
I was also a movie pass goer back in the day, and I when I lived in Brooklyn, at least at the last place I was at, I was about let's say maybe about a 20-minute walk from the local movie theater. It was a former United Artists movie theater that, although it was still Regal, it was known as the UA Sheepshead. And I would walk there, put on my headphones, listen to a podcast, and have a nice leisurely walk on a fall night and, go see whatever movie was playing at the time. Saw Atomic Blonde there on my movie pass, and I remember seeing at least a couple of the Marvel releases for the second or third time in that same fashion, just because I could, because it was a way to get out. And for someone who usually works from home long before this pandemic, it was a way to leave the house. So that I would 100% agree with you there, Murd, that it's something I'm very much missing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, meanwhile, speaking of movies, and speaking of Robert Pattinson, Batman trailer. Who here got the chance to see it?
I saw it.
I saw it. I have to rewatch it.
Okay. So, thoughts and opinions on the teaser.
I found it oddly underwhelming.
Yeah, and I'm not.
I thought it was a
sold on
strange
yet.
trailer. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not discounting it either yet. I'm not saying, oh, this is just going to be crappy. I will see it, but I was underwhelmed with it.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't mean to cut you off there. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. It just doesn't feel right to me yet.
Yeah, I don't mean to. I'm just reacting to it as a trailer.
Yeah.
I mean, the movie might be wonderful. I don't know, but as a trailer, it didn't. It felt the way it was put together felt very disjointed. In that I didn't get a real sense of like what this movie is going to be like. Now, granted, I mean, Deemer would always say, he likes trailers that basically give you no idea about the movie at all. And then you have the pants extreme where he flees the theater when the trailers actually come on the screen.
Claps his hands in his ears and goes la 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 whenever anyone much as mentions the movie for fear of spoilers.
So maybe in that sense, this was a good trailer because I didn't get a great sense of how they're going to approach Batman. I just had this. It was just an oddly underwhelming experience. Like I think of other trailers where I'm like, God, I can't wait to see this.
Yeah.
And this is like, all right.
And I'm not sold on the design of the costume yet. I'm just, it's again, nothing bad yet. I'm just not there yet. I just don't. I really wanted, and some of it has impacted my perspective on this new movie. I did want Ben Affleck to get a shot at his own Batman movie. I did like him
actually,
in the role.
Yeah.
I wanted to see an older Batman. And if the rumors are true and Ben Affleck's coming in to this Flash movie that's still supposedly going forward, well, that's great. Then I get to see him a little bit yet as Bruce Wayne and Batman.
Okay.
Yeah, they did essentially confirm that at the DC All Access from a week or two ago. That they showed some images of what Flash's suit is going to look like in Flashpoint, and it looks a lot more streamlined and closer to the New 52 look. Which I have, which I actually enjoy that look a lot, so I'm happy to see it. But yeah, that the Ben Affleck Batman and somehow Michael Keaton's Batman are going to be involved,
which is also awesome.
Yes.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so they're definitely going whole hog on the alternate universes of this Flashpoint movie.
You know what, Shane? When I was watching that trailer, it felt like I was watching one of those YouTube phony trailers people patch together.
Yeah,
it had that feel to it. It just struck me as odd.
Yeah, it's a good point, Chris. It kind of felt like people trying to recreate the look and feel of the Nolanverse Batman in their garage.
Well, and part of my problem also, and this is just me, maybe I'm getting old for some of this stuff, but if you think about it, starting with the Nolan films, that's 3. Ben Affleck's been in Superman, Batman, and Justice League, so that's 5. Now you got a 6th one coming out, all in the span of a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
Which then still in the back of my head goes, Warner Brothers still doesn't know necessarily what to do with these characters at this time.
Yeah. Well, number one, I blame Spider-Man. It's all Spider-Man's fault. Because had those amazing Spider-Man movies not been rushed out the door and we had just had those 2 Spider-Mans, I think we'd be much better off. But Sony had to keep the ball rolling and keep their contract going, so they rushed that out the door, which then led other movie universes to think, hey, we constantly need to be churning these things out to keep them relevant, which, whatever it is, what it is. I will say this trailer got me in 3 ways. 1, you had me at Jeffrey Wright as James Gordon.
Oh, hey, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah. I am sold beyond sold at Jeffrey Wright in anything. And he's
a great actor.
He looks like he has James Gordon down just even from the few bits that we got from him. And the relationship between Gordon and Batman feels right even from the small bit of trailer that we got. So I'm in on that. 2, no stupid voice for Batman.
I agree with that. I will agree with that.
Yeah, like there's no swear to me, and there's also no voice modulation. So I'm down on that. And also, the one fight scene that they showed us looked like actual fighting, and it's been a while. It doesn't look like there's any sort of, acrobatics going on here. I mean, obviously, Batman has, martial arts going for him, which I'm sure we'll see at some point. But it just looked more street level, and I'm looking forward to that. And it may actually be a menacing Riddler in one way or another once we actually get in there.
Which that part I'm looking very much forward to. Going back all the way to the 60s TV show, Riddler's been one of my favorite Batman villains forever.
Yep. I would agree on that. So it's just a teaser. I had people I had people on the internet trying to, go back and forth with me. Well, it's not a teaser, it was 2 minutes long. Like, no, it's literally a teaser. A teaser is what you put out when a movie is not complete and you want to put a trailer out. That's exactly what this is. It doesn't have to be 50 seconds. It doesn't have to be 30 seconds. It's a teaser with what they have in the can, and that's what we got to see. And I think it did a good enough job of showing us that, and also showing us Colin Farrell looking like Richard Kind.
Well, Ian, when you put it that way, I mean, as a teaser, I can see how it would make more sense.
Yes.
It's still. I know. It still left me cold. Not enough that I wouldn't see the movie.
Oh,
but,
sure. Yeah.
Murd, what'd you think? I look forward to your critique.
Well, I already mentioned how it kind of, the look and feel of it, what little we can get from the superficial glimpse that we've gotten so far. It does kind of feel, to me at least, like someone trying to do a watered-down version of Nolan. I'm pleased that the Riddler ostensibly is the villain in this piece because I have an affection for that character similar to Shane's. And when you said forever, Shane, was that a Jim Carrey reference?
No. I enjoy his portrayal if I'm in the right mood, but I prefer not so over the top in Jim Carrey's way. That bothers me if I'm not in the right mood to watch it.
Gotcha. But still not the worst Batman movie.
No, not the worst Batman. No, not at all.
Oh, sure.
I've watched that movie many times.
The thing that kind of had me excited for this movie when it was first announced a while ago was the stated intent of the filmmaker to focus on Batman quad detective.
Yeah.
This trailer, as Ian says, it's a teaser. It's a very early preliminary glimpse. It doesn't really show much of that aspect of things. It shows us Batman savagely beating up some punk in an alley somewhere. Not Batman at his most cerebral, but the Riddler is in there. So that's kind of promising on that front, that maybe we will get to see more of the Detective Batman. And I'm picturing Matt rushing to the forums right now to respond to that, because he's already said a couple of times on the pre-existing thread on the main site at thecomicforums.com that actually, there's been detective work in just about all the Batman films so far. It's just that people don't know what detective work looks like. Well, okay, fine. I am hoping that this movie dwells even more on that than previous efforts have. I was actually hoping for something like a Batman procedural.
Well, riddle me this, Murd. Delightful. I could actually see the air harp as it was happening.
God, I feel better.
And it is.
That makes one of us.
Well, we'll find out in 3 questions whether you actually
Murd, that
do
was
feel
too
better.
grim.
It's time once again for Muddle the Murd, and Murd will tell us more about what you're muddling.
Well, folks, Muddle the Murd is our trivia segment here on Comic Geek Speak, and it's also a prime opportunity for you, the listeners, to participate in the merriment here on our little podcast. It is a trivia contest, and you, the listener, if you would like to attempt to muddle the Murd, must submit via email to comicgeekspeak@gmail.com 3 comic book trivia questions. 1 must be a Marvel question, 1 a DC question, and the 3rd a question about some other publisher besides Marvel and DC. And the 3 questions must also break down chronologically as 1 question about comics published before 1970, 1 about comics published between 1970 and 2000 inclusive, and 1 question about comics published after the year 2000. Submit these questions according to the provided guidelines, and please don't forget to tell us what the answers to those questions are. Otherwise, how will we know if you've succeeded? And Ian, our quizmaster, will ask those questions of me, the Murd, to be muddled. And if I cannot answer even one of them correctly, if I get all 3 of them wrong, you who have submitted the questions will have muddled the Murd, and I will be mailing you at my own very dear expense a fantastic prize.
And what is that prize today?
Well, Ian, we're still playing for the last piece of art in that cache of original art from our anonymous benefactor, and it happens to be a piece of Katie Cook original art. It is a 4-panel Gronk comic strip complete with Katie's little notes summarizing in funny words and sound effects what's happening in each panel.
Fantastic. Well, today's attempt is being made by Alex Desorday, otherwise known as the Geek Librarian. And he has this to say at his beginning here. Good day, gentlemen. I would like to try my hand at Muddle the Murd if Mr. Murdo would be so gracious as to take the time.
I would be honored, monsieur.
Alrighty. And we begin with DC, who co-stars with Batman and Robin in Detective Comics number 331, Museum of Mixed Up Men.
Co-star in Detective Comics. This is where I wish I could light up the pants signal. You probably know this better even than I. Okay. I'm going to say Hawkman.
Any of you guys have a guess?
What time was that again from?
This is 1964, I believe.
My gut would say Elongated Man, but that may be a completely wrong time frame.
A ring-a-ding-ding, a ring-a-ding-ding. You are correct, sir.
Ooh, wow. That's a rarity.
Yeah, good job pulling that one out of your butt. Ralph Dibny, the Elongated Man, did indeed guest star in Detective Comics number 331.
Awesome.
All right.
Shame.
Question 2. We go to 1989 and Marvel. Which character's God Country storyline ran in Marvel Comics Presents in 1989?
Ooh.
God Country.
God's Country, by the way. It's apostrophe S, God's Country.
God's Country. Okay.
In God's country. Sorry.
Okay. What were the issue numbers again, Ian?
He doesn't actually give issue numbers. He said storyline ran in Marvel Comics Presents in 1989.
This does ring a bell. Yeah, there's a few possibilities circulating in my head here. I'm just This might not be my wisest play, but I'm going to go the route of someone who has a connection to actual gods and say Hercules.
Nope. Unfortunately, a no there. By the way, this was written by Ms. Ann Nesenti.
Can I take a shot at that, Ian?
But of course, sir. Go right ahead.
Is it Colossus?
Ilyana! You are correct.
Oh, all right.
Wow.
I know he was the star of the God Loves, Man Kills story, but...
Yep. It's
All right.
issues 10 through 17 of Marvel Comics Presents.
I remember that because I remember when Marvel Comics Presents came out, I was so excited because they were giving anthology stories for different characters who didn't necessarily get their own work titles. And I vividly remember, Will Spartazzo do the art on that?
No, actually, it was art by Rick Leonardi and Pete Craig.
Rick Leonardi, okay, because all those guys, Leonardi, Portasso, they were all doing X-Men art.
Yep.
Around that time, so I can picture that some of the covers from that story.
Yeah, I think it was actually not too long ago that I got to the J.M. Miles Explain the X-Men episodes where they were doing God's Country. So this is weird kismet here. Alrighty, and question 3, we go independent and we go modern day. Between March 2006 and May 2007, IDW IDW, the publisher, released a wonderful 12-issue comic adaptation, illustrated by the remarkable Gabriel Rodriguez. What is the full title of this adaptation? It includes the author of the original work.
All right. I don't begin to know the answer to this one. Boy. I was trying to think, what did IDW do around that time frame that was adapted from something that was written by somebody?
Yeah.
They've adapted it from another medium and needed to include the name of the author. Stephen King's Cujo. I really don't know.
Any guesses from the Peanut Gallery?
None.
No.
Okay, the correct answer is Clive Barker's Great and Secret Show. Yeah, Clive Barker's Great and Secret Show, which, mind you, there may be other times where I would say that this might be null and void. However, almost every single Clive Barker work starts off with Clive Barker's blank whenever it's adapted.
Well, the Muddle feels that it's a fair question.
Fair enough. There we go.
That's what matters.
All right, excellent.
We are. I am muddled. Congratulations. You'll be receiving your lovely Gronk original art here as soon as I can collect your mailing address.
Yep, and we'll need to email him for that as well, as he did not include that. I will say that as well, in the future, anyone who is submitting to Muddle the Murd, please also include your address if you would like to speed the process along in case you do indeed win a prize for your muddling. It's one less email for us to send, and it'll probably get you your prize a little bit faster.
Well said, Quizmaster Ian. Thank you.
Alrighty. But
and while I still command the floor here, I'd like to take this moment to offer some special belated birthday wishes by special request to CGS listener Anil Lindsay up in Canada. The actual blessed day was actually August 27th, but because of our little late summer mini hiatus, this is the earliest we were able to get the wishes out to him. But as for his wife, Christine, he says he's an avid listener and would just make his year if we could wish him a happy belated birthday on the air. So from Christine and all of us here at Comic Geek Speak and Ale, hope it was a great one.
fantastic.
Happy birthday indeed.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Anel. Fantastic. I'll also throw a shout out there to our very own Pants, as some behind the scenes, back and forth. We've been having some issues with the studio, the Comic Geek Speak studio, over the last couple of months, which is why even before the pandemic we were entirely remote. And Pants went ahead and headed to the studio this last week and got it up and running for us. So major props to the Pants one himself, as we will yet again be able to use the studio for Skype means once we are able to get there. You're the man, Pants.
Indeed, even in his majestic silence, hand still is by our side.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. So I will throw it over to one more bit of news that came out, and then we can definitely talk comics, because it is a comic talk after all. News came out earlier today, gentlemen, that the Walking Dead comic book series is not the only thing ending. Walking Dead, the TV show, will be ending after its supersized 11th season.
I didn't even know it was still on.
That was the response to a couple people made on the super show on the super group. So that's you're not the only one there. They decided that they're going to do a 24 episode final season, which means they'll probably be split up three ways, because that's what AMC loves to do. So it'll conclude in 2022. So we're not even close to the ending yet.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
When it said that, I figured that'd be like, oh, by Christmas we'll be done.
Yep. And then after that, they're going to have a spin-off series featuring Daryl and Carol. So it'll be the Daryl and Carol hour. At least I hope that's what they call it.
Didn't they already do a spin-off series?
They did, Fear the Walking Dead. And then there's another one starting up this fall that's unrelated to those two. But now they're going to have this spin-off. And this is the most interesting one. They're apparently going to be doing an anthology, which means hopefully one-and-done stories in the world of Walking Dead. I'm a lot more interested in that than probably anything else that they announced. Because there's
Can't be a good anthology.
Oh yeah, I mean it certainly has wiggle room to be interesting and unique with its with the way it's set up. So pretty cool. Haven't watched Walking Dead in a while, but maybe now I can sit down and watch it all once the 11th season is done, come 2022, I guess. Meanwhile, comics. Chris, you want to start us off?
I'd be honored, my friend. I have in my hand. I've been looking forward to this for months. When I got my box, I guess it was last month, ripped it open with great anticipation. There it was. Sat down immediately and read it. Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips, Pulp.
Ugh.
Not a bad impression, Ian.
Thank you.
I'm honored, sir.
Thank you. I've been taking lessons.
Yeah, don't. No one should ever want to emulate me too much, though, because that leads you down a sad, lonely, and twisted road. But Shane. Also, I like that. My sad, high-pitched caterwauling. So this is an OGN that the Dream Team, Brubaker and Phillips released. Colors by Sean Phillips' son, Jacob Phillips, who always does a fantastic job. And the premise is, if some listeners aren't aware, I mean, I've talked about this team ad nauseum, but they really specialize in crime noir, criminal, kill or be killed, the Fade Out, which is, I think, my personal favorite of all the stuff they've done, Fatale. And this OGN it takes place in the 1930s, so in the era of pulps. And it's about an old pulp writer who writes westerns, sort of like the dime store type pulp westerns. Mm-hmm. And we find out in the story that in his youth, he was an actual gunfighter in the waning days of the Old West, like the very late 19th century. And just about how his past intersects with his life of struggle as a penny a page type writer, essentially, and how he decides to sort of apply his old instincts and skills one last time in the service of what he sees as a good cause. That's all I'll say about it. But when I read something like this, it reminds me of why I love this medium so much. Because, and I've said this before on the show, and part of this is just my age too. I'm not as enthused about a lot of the monthly format books anymore. The recurring characters and titles, but something like this is just, again, an example of what the comic book can achieve. And it's a one and done. It's one story. It's got a beginning and an end. And really, no one does a story like these two gentlemen. I can't praise it enough. It's from Image, $16.99 cover price, hardcover, beautiful production in terms of the visual. It was really wonderful. So these guys keep hitting it out of the park.
Chris, were you aware that Ed Brubaker worked on a Netflix series at some point back in I think 2019, if I remember correctly.
He worked on a Netflix series?
Oh, I'm sorry, not Netflix, Amazon Prime. It's called Too Old to Die Young. It was co-created by Ed Brubaker and Nicholas Winding Refn. And the reason I even found out it existed was because I watched the movie Drive for the first time.
Oh, I love that movie. Oh, that movie's so good.
It's fantastic. He's the director of that, Refn.
Oh, really? You know, as you mentioned that, Ian, I think I have a dim memory now because Brubaker always has wonderful, extensive letters pages where he comments on things he's doing and so forth. I'm sure he mentioned it.
Yeah.
And I probably just blew by me in a sense, but I love that Drive that's a sensational film.
It's a fantastic movie.
What's the name of the series again? Let me write this down.
It's called Too Old to Die Young.
And it's on Prime, you said?
I believe it's on Prime, yes.
Okay, look that up.
Yep. Yeah, because once you mentioned Brubaker, that's immediately where my brain went, because I remembered coming across that, not knowing it existed, and I knew it was something you needed to know existed.
Ian, as always, you got your finger on the pulse.
But
if you don't mind, I want to shout out a few more quick things I read.
Yeah, sure.
Another book I got. I every month I if I can, I try a couple new things. Adventure Man #1, also from Image. Now the creative team is why I picked this up, of course. Matt Fraction, that's enough, and the Dodsons. On art.
Nice.
Pencils and colors. Terry inks Rachel. Letters Clayton Cowles. So this was immensely fun. It starts off literally like you think you'd land in the middle of like a over the top 1930s pulp serial, like what Sky Captain the World of Tomorrow tried to capture, like that type of feel. Immensely fun, and it's purposely cartoonish and hokey, and that's what you expect. And then it does a total pivot. And I'm reading this like, all right, this is Fraction. There's got to be something else going on here. And sure enough, there is. And it then takes you in a very different direction. And I don't want to say any more than that because I really think people should give this a shot. But I was really enthralled with this. And the artwork is just gorgeous. Oh. So Adventure Man #1. I haven't picked up 2 yet, but I haven't read anything by Fraction in a little while, so I was really excited to give this a shot.
Nice.
And the last thing I wanted to mention, over the summer, I treated myself to a batch of trades, and I realized as I was buying some stuff that I had not read the Final League of Extraordinary Gentlemen series, Tempest. So I couldn't actually find it online, but I was my son and his friend were at Great Adventure. I dropped them off, and there was a comic shop not too far from there. So I said, I'll pop in and see what they got. And they had a hardcover copy of it. And I picked it up. I'm about halfway through it, and boy, is it not disappointing. It's so good. First of all, it has 3D glasses. And so there's that. But, it's – and again, it's Alan Moore and it's Kevin O'Neill, right? That's the artist, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Forgive me, I don't have it in front of me. But it's sort of their culminating story of this entire universe they've created. And, of course, there's nonlinear aspects to it. There's just pop culture references on top of each other. And, of course, Moore is skewering a lot of those references. A deeply unflattering but utterly compelling take on James Bond. There's commentaries on superhero films. I mean, there's so much meta stuff going on in this story, which is what I expected and was looking forward to. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm late to the part. This came out a couple of years ago, but I just hadn't read it, and I'm so glad I picked it up. And again, it's just another reminder of what a unique vision Moore has always had, and just why he's one of the all-time great writers in the history of the medium. So, really, really enjoying that.
Nice, yeah, and
cool.
It is indeed Kevin O'Neill. That's the name of the.
Yeah, forgive me, I brain farted there for a moment.
Yeah, not a problem. Shane, what about you?
That's my 2 cents. Yep.
What you been up to, Shane?
Oh wait, I'm sorry. Forgive me.
Go ahead.
One more thing. Forgive me, because I just think it's important to bring this up because I still want people to have faith in superhero comics. I got X-Men Volume 1, The Trade.
Yes.
because I'm reading that series in trade essentially because I was very late to that party. We already talked about how I read House of X and Power of X.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm making my way through. I'm about 2/3 through that. Fellas, I got to tell you, I haven't been this excited to read an X-Men comic.
Yeah,
I think since the 1980s.
Yeah,
it's really something.
This is. Are you Shane? Are you current on that series or?
I'm a few issues behind on each series over the last 2 months.
same here.
Okay.
Because I'm reading it on the Marvel app, so I'm 6 months behind to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever's available, I'm 6 months plus a couple issues now behind.
Okay, so we've talked about this a bit before, and like I remember when I was in the 80s. So I discovered the X-Men in the 80s, and I went back and I read all the 70s stuff, and I devoured all that reprints and trades, Dark Phoenix and so forth. But I started to read the book monthly in like the latter Claremont era of the 80s, which is fantastic. It's the John Romita Jr. era. Then you have, like Leonardi, Silvestri, Portasio, the team in Australia, all that great stuff. And I remember every month, because there was only one X-Men title. Those are the days. And every month, the excitement I felt as like, a 13, 14-year-old kid getting that book. And I haven't felt that way about the X-Men again until now. And what Hickman is doing, and because he's doing something that's so rare now in these franchise titles, he's taking it to another level where you still have the whole world, the whole history, everything is there as it always has been, but it's now gone in a direction that is so compelling, but also so deeply disturbing.
Oh, yes.
I mean, all I'll say is this. Magneto's walking around describing himself as a god, and the X-Men are okay with it.
Yep.
And people who describe themselves as gods, that never ends well in history. So, and that's just one little aspect, but it's riveting because at one time you totally understand, like, of course they're going to do this. Why wouldn't they? They've been hunted and killed for so long. Everything makes sense. But at the same time, you're like, yeah, but what are they turning into?
Yeah.
And it's like I finished X-Men Fantastic Four, the miniseries that Zdarsky did, because the fourth issue, of course, is delayed. So I got that recently. Did you guys read that?
I did not.
I had pre-ordered the trade digitally,
okay.
So I should be getting that soon.
I won't spoil anything. I've raved about the prior issues, but the way that ends, you're like, whoa. And there's an interesting moment with Dr. Doom in that story, where he's having a conversation with Valeria, who he basically she calls him Uncle Vic, and he's positing on mutation and what's going to happen going forward. When you get to the issue, read it. We'll talk about it because I think Zdarsky leaves a window open for something very interesting with the place of mutants in the X-Men going forward if they follow through what Doom was talking about. But I got to tell you, my friends, I am enthralled and creeped out by what's going on. X-Men. I can't wait to see where this is going to go. I just know it's going to go somewhere really bad, probably.
More than likely, it's Hickman, so that's more than likely the case. Yeah. What I will say about it is, I've seen some people respond to this take on the X-Men, saying that it was painting them too much as villains, and that they missed the days where the X-Men were heroes, and that Hickman is missing the point here with the characters a little bit. I've heard that argument. I don't actually agree with that argument. What I see here is similar to what Chris was saying. The next logical step in the evolution of the X-Men, where after years of being pushed down and oppressed, they're trying to finally find a way forward, one way or the other. It doesn't necessarily mean they're making the right choices, but at the same time, all of this makes perfect story sense to me, and I know that Hickman's going to make it make sense in the end with the way he eventually winds up concluding this.
And not only that, what you also have to remember when you talk about like they're heroes and so forth, they're a nation now.
Yeah.
They're a state, and nations and states sometimes do very questionable, even horrible things as they see it in the best interests of their particular nation.
Yep.
And I mean, when you look at the ruling council of Krakoa,
Oh,
I mean, Mr. Sinister's there. Apocalypse is there. Like, it's, and I get it. Like, I like when I look at it from the perspective, okay, there are countries, so they have to pursue their interests, and that means sometimes they're going to do things that are ruthless or so yeah. These are not heroes per se now,
and it's in their best interest now as a nation, not necessarily their ideologies from days gone by, but how they perceive to protect themselves and sustain their race.
Yeah, but that's the last thing. I'll turn the floor over to others, of course, but that I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, that's it. I'm very pleased with the X-Men universe right now. Like you said, it's something to be excited about for the first time in a very long time. Yeah. I had an inkling of that when all new X-Men came out for a little while, but that waned. And then I fell off of X-Men again. But this is interesting stuff being written right now.
And you know what? I should revise one of my other comments. I think the last time I was just excited about the X-Men, it wasn't just the 80s. It was also the Joss Whedon run.
Mm-hmm.
That I really loved, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
All right, I'll shut up.
You're fine.
You're fine. You're fine.
Affirmation from Levenstein.
Shaney Poo, what do you got?
So I haven't read so much in the last month or so. I'm not really sure why. It's not like I dislike it right now. I guess I'm just caught up in other things. I do have a story. I have a set of shelves that were from IKEA in my comic book room. They are plain wooden shelves, very plain. There's no paint on them, no nothing. They're just whatever they are. I forget what they're called. Mm-hmm. They actually don't make them anymore that I know of for quite a few years. Well, my son was up here the other week and noticed that they lean forward. And I thought, what, really? They lean forward? So we went and did some looking and some measurements, and sure enough, they were leaning at the top about 7 inches away from the wall.
Oh, boy.
Oh.
Now, the bottom half of them have my short boxes on, so it's not like I was afraid it was going to topple. But the top half, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows. The bottom 3 are short boxes. Then the next 2 were trades and hardbacks. And then the top one is just paraphernalia. Different things from my life, different toys, whatever. Each shelf kind of represents something if you think of it that way. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't get over how this was happening. And I was really getting concerned that there is a possibility that it would at least go forward enough that it would break. And maybe not topple over, but something would give way. And I thought, well, okay, I got to avoid that, do something. Talked to my son about helping me do some things and kind of gave up for a couple weeks about it and put it in the back of my head. And then this weekend I looked, and it really looked bad this past weekend. So I just started with one row pulling stuff off because the room's kind of messy enough the last few months, and I don't like it. I want to try and get it cleaned up yet again, and I get so far and then get caught up in something else, and it never fully gets completed the way I'd like it to. But I started pulling off all the trades and hardbacks and got it to a point where there was nothing on those middle 2 shelves that once housed all the trades and hardbacks. They were all moved to a different set of bookshelves that had a lot of just junk on it. We were actually going to take them down and never did, as the kids grew up and certain Legos and toys got pushed on those shelves until we decided what to do with them. So I did have the space to fully move all of the hardbacks and trades to this new set of shelves. And they look really nice there, and I'm pleased with it. So then my son, Matt, and I looked at these shelves, the way they were pushing out, and I looked at the way the comic boxes were on them. And I pulled all the short boxes out about 2 inches. Mm-hmm. And then he and I stood in a way to hold 4 arms against these shelves and push everything. Nothing fell, which is amazing. And we pushed it all up against the wall. I think somehow over time, moving the short boxes on and off, as well as the trades on and off, had allowed these shelves to kind of walk in a leaning way forward. So now that the top heavy part is gone, and it's only like an inch away from the wall now, which is what I expected with the molding on the bottom. People would say, well, why don't you support it by drilling something in the wall to put the wire in or a strap to hold them up. My problem with that in drywalled homes is it inevitably pulls out the screws in drywall. Even with anchors, at some point it will pop out. So I kind of shy away from that. So that was my kind of messy, exciting weekend, was to move all my trades and hardbacks from one side of the room to the other and then figure out what to do with these shelves. So now I have a bunch of toys and pictures and paraphernalia on these shelves where the trades and hardbacks were, and that's all a work in progress.
Glad you caught it before it tumbled, because that would have been a lot worse.
We kept looking at it over a week or two, and he'd come up and he'd like look at the middle, because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 supports, and he'd take kind of the one right in the middle. Oh, there's 5 supports. Yeah. And he'd take the one right in the middle and he'd kind of push on it, and you could see the whole middle kind of rock back and forth. And I'm like, I don't like that it's doing that so easily when you're just barely nudging it. So that was making me a little bit nervous. Part of that is this obsession I've had with these new G.I. Joe classified figures. Now, this is going to be somewhat of a World of Toys segment here. I have not actively searched out toys since 2005, when Palisades kind of closed up. The Muppet line was over. I'd gotten the superhero Grover, the Super Grover from the conventions, and that was pretty much it. You know, every now and then I'd get a Lego set or I'd get a toy if something looked interesting, but I did not go out searching or pre-ordering anything. It was uninteresting to me. I've been quite a bit obsessed about this line. I've acquired quite a few of them from pre-orders and mail orders, and they've turned me around. At first, I really didn't think the designs looked right. I didn't think some of the color schemes looked quite right. But as I've rewatched G.I. Joe cartoons, and I'm up to issue 33, I think it is, in the G.I. Joe complete collection. I have the first 6 volumes of that, and I'm up to volume 4, issue 33, I think it is. And I'm enjoying it immensely. I've come around. These designs aren't too bad. Some of it I wouldn't do it this way, but it's okay. It's not my company. You know, Hasbro has the license, makes them. I think they've dropped the ball on a couple things that should have been, but I'm enjoying them enough that I started, much like with the Muppets, where I told Jamie, and he would laugh about this all the time, that I was only going to get Bunsen, Beaker, and maybe a couple others, and I ended up with Muppets Beyond Belief. I really only thought, well, I'll just get Snake Eyes, maybe Destro, and a Storm Shadow down the road, and that's gone by the wayside, and I've acquired more of them. One extremely frustrating part was Hasbro and Target has this exclusive Cobra Island wave that consists of Beachhead, a variant of Roadblock, which really looks like Heavy Duty, a Cobra Trooper, and the Baroness with this motorcycle thing called a coil. They are some of the most difficult things I have ever tried to acquire in my entire life.
Oh boy! You gotta have a Cobra Trooper. Come on.
Well, and to have something as simplistic as a Cobra Trooper, an army builder, and I'm not an army builder kind of person, but I wouldn't mind a couple of them. To have something like that be in a wave that is so hard to get, I really think it was somewhat Target being cautious about over-ordering things that may not prove to be popular and being a peg warmer. Or it's that the fandom is so overwhelmingly excited about this that they just can't stay on the shelves.
Well, let me tell you, I hadn't looked at these until you brought these. These look sensational.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things like their weapons are very, very Nerf gun looking, and I completely agree with that. In a large array of them, instead of being just simplistic black guns that look like weapons an army would use, they look a little bit more futuristic than what we're used to. But it's okay. I don't mind that. Now, looking at them, thought about it, seeing what kind of things are out there just in the world, in toys and movies and TV shows and everything. Some of this seems to be tied to an upcoming massive video game release that's going to happen this fall, I think it is, where it's going to be on the Switch and PlayStation, Xbox, and all that. And some of these designs look like they are based on that video game. So that could have a lot to do with why they're designed the way they are. But overall, they look fantastic. They're these 6-inch scale figures that the Star Wars Black series are made after. They have multiple points of articulation. They can go on all kinds of crazy poses. I've been very pleased. I've only opened a couple of them. I have a Snake Eyes and a Destro open, and there's a couple others I'm going to get to open. I'm not an in-box collector per se. There are some things I do. These G.I. Joe figures right now, most of them are, because I love the way they look displayed for now. That could change as time marches on. But I have acquired almost all of the Cobra Island Wave, but they are some of the most difficult things I have ever tried to get. I'm part of a forum for G.I. Joe figures talking about where to find them, how to get them. We're trying to help each other across the country to get some of these things, because it's they'll show up in California, and then weeks go by and they show up in Florida, but nowhere in the middle. And then they might show up here, but it's one case of 6 figures, and then they disappear in an hour, and then there's nothing to be seen for weeks. So it's really difficult. A lot of that has to do with scalpers going in at 8 o'clock in the morning and grabbing whatever stock is there. And, hey, in some ways it's a business and you can't stop it. There's just no way to do that.
Right.
But whenever a lot of people that I've been talking to we try to help each other to find certain things and get them to each other. So we each have at least one of these things or a minimal amount of them versus none to be found. But it's really been an interesting month for me to kind of dive back into a rabbit hole that I felt I was safely out of it, never to revisit. But the fact that it's
Shane, the Cobra Trooper's amazing. Wow!
Oh my God, he is probably my favorite, and I do have one of him. And I'd like to get a couple more, but I've read about people getting 20 and 30 of these, and I just don't know how they're doing it because they come in cases of 6 initially. All the stores around me within a 75-mile radius only had like one case of these things, and then sporadically 1 or 2 might show up. Something that is very in a rude awakening kind of way for how toy collecting and toy hunting happens these days. There was a pre-order that came up in the latter part of July that I completely missed. It was available for all of 20 or 30 seconds. I mean, I was available online, clicked the button, and just that fast they were gone. And there's a few theories going around about why that happened. But as time went on, I think it was August 14th. You could pre-order some more. They opened up with an announced, hey, on this date we're going to have available to order again. So I did get in on some of that. I couldn't get all of them, but I got a couple of them ordered. Now here's the crazy thing: some of my orders from 8/14 have come, shipped, and I've received them, whereas some of the July ones haven't even shipped yet.
Huh.
And some of them have even been canceled.
Yeah.
From what I'm
Shane, how many figures are in the line?
in total, with all the quote variants, I think it's like 17.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and some of them, like there's Cobra Commander, which now has a regular version, a Regal kind of light blue version coming later this year, and then there's some Snake Supreme version, which is like the San Diego Comic-Con type exclusive coming to order later in September. So that one figure already has 3 variants. Roadblock has 2, Snake Eyes has 2, and then you have the rest of the figures that are in the line.
Yeah. See, you know what, Shane? You know what I'm getting flashbacks to right now, Shane? The beginning of the Amiibo craze.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
right when Nintendo Amiibo came out, and it was impossible to find anything, even the day they came out, and pre-orders would immediately disappear, and they get gobbled up by secondary retailers and third string retailers and stuff like that. And for months on end, it was completely impossible to find it until the craze died down, and then all of a sudden they all started showing up.
And I do think the regular waves, like the regular wave, the first one consists of Roadblock, Snake Eyes, Destro, Duke, and Scarlet.
Yeah.
they were readily available for pre-order. I have not seen them much in the stores, but they have been out there.
Right.
It doesn't seem like they are near as difficult to find as this Cobra Island wave. And then recently, although subjectively, because some of these showed up a month ago and some didn't, you have the kind of second wave of Cobra Commander, Gung Ho, and a Red Ninja. Now, oddly enough, Cobra Commander comes with 3 in a case, Gung Ho 2, and a Red Ninja 1. Well, Red Ninja is kind of an army builder thing, so you're short packing the one thing that people want multiples of right off the bat. So I see that one being harder to find, but not impossible. This Cobra Island wave was announced on a certain date. I do not remember when it was, in July or August. I think it was July. It had to be July. And it was said, it was like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and a message went out to social media saying, tomorrow, I think it was Target that did it, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., these figures are going up for pre-order. Boom, there it is. And that's it. There was no leadway to it, no leakage, no nothing. Hardly anybody knew of these things coming until that night. And all of a sudden, the next morning, it shot off with this incredible search and hunt for these things. The distribution that Target has, I can't wrap my head around it. How things that people pre-ordered in July still are not being shipped. When other things from August are shipped and received. It's very regional. One of my things came from Florida. One thing came from Philadelphia. It's just crazy. So being that it's quote an exclusive wave, I'm not sure that the Beachhead, the variant Roadblock, the Cobra Trooper, and the Baroness will be available the same way they are as this Cobra Island wave. I could be wrong, because there's other things like the Transformers 2-pack of Thundercracker and Skywarp that was really hot a couple months ago, and then you couldn't find them for a while, and now you can start to see them coming through again. That could happen with this. The thing I would have liked to have seen announced would have been much like Target did with the Star Wars retro wave last year, where they had a Luke, a Leia, I think it was Han Solo and Darth Vader. They were resculpts of classic Kenner figures. So they looked like your 1978 Star Wars figures, but they were a little bit bigger and just a little bit different so that they weren't indistinguishable from vintage figures. And they had them on classic hardbacks with a big retro sticker kind of put on it. But that was a Target exclusive for a few months. Then after that, they were released more massively across different online platforms to be ordered and bought. And then that lasted for 6 months or so. I would have liked to have seen that happen with these, where, yeah, they're a Target exclusive for the first 6 months, and then we're going to release them somewhere else. That hasn't been said yet, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. I just thought it was interesting. I know Chris has a great love for G.I. Joe, much like I do. So I thought it was worth talking about and kind of going back in time to a World of Toys type of thing, because I really never thought I would delve back into being obsessed about something the way this has been. And thank goodness for some online ordering, because and I don't mean just for the Cobra Island stuff, just for the regular wave, because that's how I've gotten almost all of them, is just ordering them from Hasbro, from different online retailers.
Shane, I imagine it's oddly comforting and rejuvenating to be obsessed with the toy line again.
It is a little bit, because I was talking to a friend about it who was helping me try to get one of these Cobra Island figures, and he has a very extensive Black Series collection. And he said, did you get into this? I said, well, I have a couple. I have a Mandalorian and a Stormtrooper, and just maybe half a dozen of them at most. And he says, well, we could do this, and you could do. I'm like, nope, I'm not going down that rabbit hole. That's a whole nother realm of collecting that I don't want to get involved in. I'm happy to just have a couple favorites, and that's it. But yeah, this G.I. Joe wave has been a lot of fun to read up on and kind of reacquaint myself with the cartoon, because Hasbro has on YouTube a lot of the classic G.I. Joe cartoons on for free. And I think you had mentioned it, Ian, months ago about it, and that's when I started rewatching them again. So that part's very comforting to kind of get.
We could do whole episodes on those G.I. Joe.
Oh yeah, we could.
And the video game in question that's being released on October 13th is called G.I. Joe Operation Blackout. and it's going to be available for Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo Switch, Windows machines, the whole deal, and it's a third-person shooter game. So that anybody who can't do first-person shooters like me might actually be able to play it.
Yeah, I'm kind of intrigued by it. I have video games, I've played stuff, but not real heavily. But I'm quite intrigued by this game.
Yes,
I might give it a try.
Same here.
You know,
So
I talked about, I'm sorry, how Murd is the guy who wanted to bring me ammunition when I'm under fire. Ian's the signals officer who makes sure the communication lines remain open. Man, you're just clutch, sir, with all these. Fantastic.
Boom.
It's been a lot of fun.
Oh my god, and it's nice to get a world of toys every now and then, even inside of a Comic Talk episode.
Amen.
Right.
Murd, what have you been reading lately?
Same old 15 years old.
And now from World of Toys to a time bubble.
Sure, why not? As I've mentioned before, I read the Countdown to Infinite Crisis one-shot a while back, and now I'm trudging along that long, glorious 6-month road to the Infinite Crisis event. I've read the OMAC Project #1, and just this morning I read Day of Vengeance #1, so that's unfolding. Also, Grant Morrison's Seven Soldiers is also now playing.
Oh, nice.
In my private old retro cinema. On the Marvel side of things, Bendis and Finch's New Avengers is just all new to me, so I'm up to issue #4 of that, I think. Mm-hmm. I just read the first issue of the spin-off miniseries Spider-Man Breakout by Tony Bedard, whom you may remember as a former writer of The Exiles.
Yep.
And that miniseries is right up my street, really. Spider-Man doesn't even really need to be in it. It's more about the loves and regrets and the grudges and animosities among a bunch of supervillains who happen to be part of the big breakout at the Raft that touched off Bendis' New Avengers run. It's more a UFOs story than anything else. And give me those obscure villains. I also recently read the first issue of Dan Slott and Paul Pletier's Great Lakes Avengers miniseries.
Ah, so good.
You remember I fended off a muddle a little while ago by remembering the names of Squirrel Girl's little squirrel assistants Monkey Joe and Tippy Toe. Yes, it's definitely dark humor, but it's still Dan Slott takes the characters just seriously enough to get by, and Paul Pletier's artwork is gorgeous as it always is.
Yep.
And well, beyond the usual diet of 15-year-old stuff, I've also been reading some stuff that's even older, courtesy of Chris. I've just finished that Essential Spider-Man volume that he lent me a while ago to present Spider-Man Micro Spotlight that we did on the Clay Tablet saga.
Yes,
that Essential continued all the way up through issue number 89 of the original Amazing Spider-Man volume. So I got to read the first appearance of the Prowler and the coming of the Kangaroo. And in Spider-Man King Size Special number 5, I finally got to read firsthand the story of the fate of Peter Parker's parents. He goes on a field trip to Algeria to confront the second Red Skull, the communist spy master.
Yes.
In a story illustrated by the seldom mentioned and a little seen Mickey DeMeo.
Yes.
Turned in some pretty good Spider-Man art there from the late Silver Age. I'm happy to have read through that. Thank you for the loan of that, Chris. I've now absorbed some more classic Spider-Man stories that I've been reading about for years, but I can now say that I have actually read. And I look forward to continuing along those lines with another volume you sent me, upcoming project on this very podcast.
Indeed.
I wonder what that could be. Foreshadowing.
Stay tuned, folks.
Yep. So I'll touch on two very different takes on Superman style characters that I've been dealing with lately. One I watched and one I read. I'll start off with the one that I watched, as I've also read bits of it. I never read the full Garth Ennis's The Boys, but I did read about
great series.
Yeah. I got about halfway through, and it actually became to be a bit too much for me.
I can understand that.
Yeah, which happens with Ennis stuff. Like I need to take it in small doses because man, he gets violent and gory at times. And the Boys is that in spades. And I almost felt like he was parodying himself by the time I gave up with it. Like, it felt like it was just getting to be a bit too much on that, and that the story was perhaps sacrificed a little bit in the process. I will go back to it eventually and see whether I continue to feel that way. But what I read was enough for me. But I'm loving The Boys on Amazon Prime. I
got to watch that.
Yeah, I watched the first season when it came out last year, and the second season just launched. They released the first 3 episodes this last Friday, and I believe they're going to be releasing them in 3-episode blocks each Friday until they're done with the season. Jack Quaid stars as Wee Huey in this version, and I had no idea that was Dennis Quaid's kid.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that either. Okay.
Yeah, until I looked it up, and now when I look at his face, it's hard not to see it because he looks just like him.
What's his name?
Jack Quaid.
Isn't he also doing the voice in Lower Decks of the one main character?
I think you might be right about that, Shane. Yeah, I think so. I'll have to take a look and see whether or not that is the case. But yeah,
I'll look it up.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you're right. Actually, yeah, he's Ensign Boimer in Lower Decks. Get out, go figure.
Oh boy, I didn't know he was in The Boys. Holy cow!
Yep, yeah, he's playing Wee Huey, and his father is played by Mr. Shaun of the Dead himself. Considering that Simon Pegg was the original inspiration, artwork-wise, by Derek Robertson for The Boys and Wee Huey. So they fit him in there somewhere. Season 2 just started, and the reason I bring it up is Homelander. Because you want to talk about a version of Superman that is, what if Superman gave no shits?
Oh, yeah.
That is definitely the Homelander right there. He's played by Anthony Starr on the TV version, on the Prime version. He's a New Zealand actor, and his American accent is flawless. It's almost like he almost sounds like Chris Evans at times. Where like he has that all American boy aspect to him, and when he's talking to the press, he sure does seem that way. But the minute that he's away from it, he will punch himself through anyone that gets in his way. And he has done that multiple times on the show. Not exactly a happy man. And it's essentially also, what if the Justice League were just not good people? That's
well, the Boys is and Innes has done this in some of his other earlier titles. It's like the ultimate deconstruction and send up of the concept of the superhero.
Yes,
and taking that concept and putting on sort of putting it through a blender, bloody sideways.
I mean, my God,
I think it's a feast.
They've already announced it's coming back for season 3, and they also already announced that in that season 3, Jensen Ackles of Supernatural will be playing Soldier Boy, which is the Captain America analog, and I cannot frickin' wait for him to show up. Not only because of Jensen Ackles, but because Eric Kripke is the showrunner of this show, and he's the guy who created Supernatural. So that there's going to be some good back and forth between the two of them, since they worked together for years. So very much looking forward to that. I would recommend The Boys, but if you're squeamish, don't even bother.
No, yeah, The Boys. I mean, the comic is. I read the series throughout its publishing run. I love pretty much all things Ennis has done, but yeah, The Boys is extremely violent.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the violence serves a purpose, though. Ennis always has a purpose for the violence, but there's a lot of in the comic. I mean, a lot of ultra violent, really dark humor, and there's pathos though there too. I mean, there's a lot of lost souls in The Boys.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, like the point of the show is it's called The Boys, and the boys are at times painted as the villains, but they're kind of the heroes because the heroes are the villains. So that's what's one of the best parts about The Boys in general, and the TV show. One of the best parts is the fact that Carl Urban is playing Billy Butcher.
Oh, he's tremendous.
You can't get better than Carl Urban. Period. For a very different take on Superman, or at least the Superman analog, I finally started reading Astro City.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
Oh, what a treat! Oh, what a panoply of treats you were in for.
Yes.
Oh my God, you're not kidding, Murd. I bought this trade. It had a sticker that said $5 on it, so chances are I bought it at a con. I forget which one, but it's been sitting on a shelf for God knows how long, and I went ahead and finally said to myself, I need something classic, and I need something that I know I will love. And knowing that Kurt Busiek was the brain behind Astro City and Brent Anderson on art, who I've seen a couple of times before, and the art he puts forth in this one is pitch perfect superhero art with a soul behind it and a style and a substance that just makes every single character come alive. Ugh, so good. And the Alex Ross covers, too, are just superb.
Ian, you're, to echo Murd's sentiment, because I read Astro City when it first came out, and I was so taken with what Busiek was doing. It's just this love letter to the concept of the superhero, as only Busiek can do it. I mean, you think about what he did with Marvels, and I haven't read the last couple arcs. I have to get back to it, but it's consistently one of the best comic book titles that's been produced in, I don't know, what has it been, 20 years, something like that?
Yeah. Yep.
25.
Yeah, it's Ian. I envy the journey, my friend.
Yeah, and that first issue, like if I had just only read that first issue, which is a Samaritan story, and the reason that I bring it up is because it is easily one of the best Superman stories I've ever read.
Oh, without question.
In one issue, he gets the essence of the character down. It doesn't matter if he's not called Superman. This is a Superman story. And if I had just stopped there, I would have been happy. And it just gets, and the rest of it's just even better. I'm about halfway through the volume.
You haven't even got to the Confessor yet.
No, I have not.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. And mind you, I only own the first volume, so I'm gonna wind up probably reading a lot of it online. In one form or another, but I may very well wind up buying the trades. I know that there were larger collections that were released at one point of multiple issues, and may even be able to get it from my local library because it wouldn't surprise me if they have it.
Yeah, but they're well worth it, my friend.
Oh, 100%. I'm in all the way, baby. This is classic superhero. So that made me very happy this week.
All right.
Yep. Anything else from the Peanut Gallery?
I've shot my bolt.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Fantastic.
Mine lies in the soil at our feet alongside both of yours, gentlemen.
Honored, my friend.
Beautiful. So I'll throw out there, since we have been mentioning it outside of the endings a lot, I'll throw out there one final time to anyone who has been donating to the show over the last couple of months.
Oh yeah.
We 100% appreciate it. It'll be going to good use, as there's at least one or two things we do need to upgrade at the studio before we get it 100% up and running, and those donations are going to go towards that. Also, the website is 100% back up and running as well. So, artwork-wise, releases-wise, knock on wood, everything seems to be working as it should. So, no more dead images, and everything should be smooth as silk on the Comic Geek Speak website again. But if you do want to donate, just go ahead and go to comicgeekspeak.com/donate.php. Doesn't matter how much it is. We thank you.
It's immensely appreciated.
Yep, most definitely. Alrighty, Shane, you ready?
Ready, willing, and able.
Okay. Now let me just...
the continuity.
Love it. All right. And let's do it.
Visit us at comicgeekspeak.com. To send us an email, the address is comicgeekspeak@gmail.com. To leave a voicemail, the number is 267-702-6642. Stop by thecomicforums.vanillacommunity.com and let us know what you think of this episode and all of your comic talk information from the last couple months. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. Thanks to everyone who contributes to the episode. We appreciate it and could not do it without you. Please send in the Muddle the Murds. We do go through them, and they're so much fun, even though Murd sometimes sounds much more unhappy about them than what we think. And as always, we are uniting the world's mightiest heroes, one listener at a time.
beams and laser beams, opinions like the seasons on everything you read in comics, movies, games, toys, artists, comic geek speak, comic geek speak, comic geek speak, comic geek speak, comic geek. Uniting the world's mightiest heroes. This is Comic Geek Speak.
Wakanda forever.
Yes.